All right, we're back. It is now episode 10 of Boots and Scarves, the NASL edition. I'm Anton, your host with the most. Stefan, who's in the next room. Hello, Stefan. One of my favorite YouTubers in Ottawa, Michael. How are you doing?
I'm all right.
And our Bytown Boys president, Jessica. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Special guest this week, basically a local hero to us in terms of football. He was playing for the enemy at one point. Then he came back for, up-team reasons, which, we don't really need to get into that. But anyway, we'd like to welcome Eddie Edward. Welcome, Eddie.
Oh, thank you.
So, like we said, it's the NASL edition of Boots and Scarves this week. Like we do with, just about every other guest, we have questions geared specifically for them. Then we have group questions where everyone gets a chance to answer. Cool? All right. So, off the bat, first question goes to Eddie. When you were playing for, in those games, those matches between Ottawa Fury FC and FC Edmonton, so were there matches that meant more to you specifically, or maybe to the clubs, be it the regular season matches or the Voyageurs Cup?
Yeah. The reason why I smile is because those rivalries, I miss them so much. Yeah. Whether, for different reasons, when I was with Edmonton, coming back home to Ottawa to play, that fired me up. And then vice versa, when I was with Ottawa, going back to Edmonton against, my old team. So, but to answer your question, the Voyageurs Cup, there is an intensity, like a fierceness to those games that just could not be replicated through any regular season game. So that was the one that, at the beginning of the season, everyone would have circled on the calendar, and everyone would really kind of put another gear for.
And us in the stands, we felt the extra jolt of electricity pulsating through. There's something in the air,
Exactly, and as players on the field, we felt that, right? So once we felt the intensity from the fans, it would just take us to another level, right? And so much fun.
Right. Cool. So the first group question is, and I'll get Steph to start us off. So, had Ottawa Fury FC won the NASL championship that year when they went to New York, do you think the team's quote unquote fate would have been any different than what had transpired in recent times?
Well, Stu would say maybe I should have my tinfoil hat out for this one, but I don't, because I don't think I should. The old saying, if and buts were honey and nuts, the world would be so much sweeter. Yeah, but I do think it would, because Ottawa likes winning. It's culture. The fans in Ottawa like winning teams. So we were, average 6-7K a game that season. Imagine going the next season with that winning side. The stadium would be, maybe the average would be 8-9, and then we'd have that competitive nature that the city of Ottawa loves. Then going forward into the USL, we're still a very highly competitive team. We've won things. We can do this. We don't care. And then in that aspect, then when the CanPL came knocking, Ottawa could go, whoa. We already have this. You want us in, we are going to do it our way. We will play ball, but we're doing it our way. So, because you're creating your market, you're proving you have that strong market that you more or less can walk around and swing like a bat and just say, I got the bat, you don't.
Right.
Kind of a bully tactic, but they've earned it right.
Michael?
Ultimately, I don't think so. I think we will have the same ending, I guess. If we won it, we may have saw a good crowd for maybe a year or so until we started to fall again. But at the end of the day, we left the NASL. So once we joined USL is where we really started to see a downfall with everything, really, when it came to the crowd and what we had on the pitch as a whole. We lost Marcos dos Santos, which was huge for us. I mean, fans to this day want him back. So
Right.
I think maybe in the short term, maybe, but at the end of the day, the NASL did fall. We were going to the USL. It was just it maybe will prolong a little bit, but we will still have the same fate at the end.
Cool. Eddie, would you like to answer this?
Yeah, sure. I'll chime in. I'm a little bit biased, but I believe that what happened would have happened regardless. I think that while, there was the ups and downs on the pitch and off it, and support and whatnot, I still believe that there was a deep hatred for the Fury brand in the city because of how the club came to be. And that if you go all the way back when I was playing youth and the Fury started to give kids an opportunity, a lot of clubs saw it as stealing players, and there was a negative connotation to what they were trying to do, which I don't agree with. I thought it was great. It gave players like myself an opportunity to be seen, go to the U.S., get a scholarship, a different platform to display your skills. But that left a really sour taste in people's mouths that to this day, or to the last day that the Fury were around, people were still holding on to that grudge from way back when. So we had a lot of people fighting against the brand, right? And they were literally not going to stop until they saw what happened, which is no longer being around. So that's kind of how I feel on it.
Oh, Jess?
My answer is no. I think I have to agree. I think our fate would have been the same. I don't think we would have. I think they would have folded, just like they had previously. It didn't matter whether or not we had won in the NASL. We had switched leagues to the USL. So I think it would have happened no matter what.
All right. Next question for Michael. In your opinion, like what did the NASL do right and or wrong as a league? Is there anything we could learn or take away from their ups and downs?
One thing I liked that what the as I like to say, NASL did. I'm not going to say NASL all podcasts. So what I like to say that NASL did right was they separated themselves from the MLS. They tried to make it their own pro league. Obviously, they had a lot of flaws. I mean, they're not around anymore, right? So they had their problems. And the big thing was when, I don't know the whole in and outs of it, but we would do an expansion of 2 or 3 teams, but we had 1 or 2 teams coming out every year. There was no consistency with owners, and I feel like there was a miscommunication with the league and owners, from what I hear anyways. But the biggest thing they did do right was separate themselves from the MLS and try to be their own pro league, where you have the USL, who are trying to do it now, but the USL was very much like an AHL to the NHL. They were very much, I like to call them a bunch league. I was not a big fan of the USL. Not to take away from the players that played in the league, but I felt like allowing the TFC2 in there, the Red Bulls 2, it really took away from the pros that where Ottawa came into play, or Phoenix, just teams that really stood alone. So, yeah.
Eddie?
Yeah, no, there's definitely some merit to what Michael just said. I personally really enjoyed the NASL days. They, like Michael said, they tried to make it their own, and it was interesting because they had a top, or I guess it would be like a second tier of North American talent, and they tried to sprinkle in some foreign talent, which was, exciting for the fans. It's exciting for the players as well, right? To see some of that foreign talent get mixed in there, like when you're playing against like Marco Senna or Raul, right? Like that's just unbelievable, right? So I think that was really, really neat. But then I think on the backside of that, the discrepancy, like with the pay, like the gap was just way too big, right? And I think that's where the mistakes led to the league falling. But it was really enjoyable while it lasted. I think just maybe if they could have balanced out the pay a little bit, either bring the top down, or just like squeeze it into the middle, they would have been better off for the long haul.
Well, Steph?
Well, they did some. Again, I'm gonna be stealing both answers. They challenged the MLS. They turned down the MLS B side. And then they had to curb in that laissez-faire spending. I agree. I'm not a fan of salary caps, but you spend what you can afford, not what you think you're going to make. If you know you're going to make $30K a year, you can't spend $45K a year hoping that there's extra money coming in. You got to work within your means. We're all taught that. I'd love to go get pissed at the pub every night, but guess what? My wallet won't allow it, neither will my liver. So you got to do it that way. The spring-fall season needed some work, but I loved it. That's a different question. But overall, I enjoyed NESL, considering Anton and I got into MLS in 2010. So we're there watching the whole, what are you doing this year? And then all of a sudden this comes out, makes perfect sense. We're understanding it. We're enjoying it. So overall, yeah, they did a bit of – the good they did was good. Unfortunately, the bad outweighed the good. And salut, bye-bye.
So, Jess?
Okay, so I have that but all leagues have a good side and a bad side. I can't really, for the NASL, I can't really pinpoint what they did wrong. But for what they did right, they didn't include the MLS 2 teams. So USL at one point had TFC 2 in there, and so they didn't include those teams. So it gave everybody, all the other teams, a better chance to win the fall season or win the spring season. And
Cool. Okay. All right. Next question for Eddie. So in your opinion, who was the best or perhaps your favorite player that you got to play against when it was the NASL days?
I would probably say Lance Lang. He's a good buddy of mine. I used to joke around with him and call him the NASL Gareth Bale. He hated it. And he's just such a fierce competitor. Like when we were playing at Edmonton, we would always line up against one another. Colin Miller will always have, us battling, and we have a lot of the same strengths. And so it was just like two bulls just hitting head to head, right?
Right.
And I always wanted to prove to him that I could stop him, and he would love to prove to me that he can get past me, right? So when we started to play against each other, well, after we were teammates, like when he was with Minnesota, it was honestly just battle all game long. And by the end of it, I was exhausted, but it was so much fun. The competition was at the highest level, and it was just who could win the bragging rights at the end of the day. So I would definitely say Lance Lang.
That is wonderful. All right. Stefan, next question. Describe your all-time favorite NASL memory.
Really, so most people on the podcast who watch this know the answer. So sunny day on a Sunday, July 5th. Ottawa Fury couldn't score a goal for some odd reason to save their life. Trafford scores one in the 13th minute. The crowd's going nuts. Anton's capping. Everybody's just getting into it. And the players are rushing over. We're yelling, Anton, the players, Anton. He turns around as soon as all the players are at the corner, just in time to prepare to receive the onslaught. The Ottawa Fury players just dogpiling onto him. That is by far my favorite. I knew it was a Sunday. I knew it was near a May long weekend. I had to do the research. It wasn't a May long weekend game because Tommy Heineman scored the lone goal in the opposite team. So, yeah, that's still in the end, my favorite. Just when the players just went right to the fans. It was not even.
Jess?
I couldn't choose just one. I have 3.
Okay.
But that is because this 2015 was my first season. So all of these memories happened in that first season that I actually continued to go to the games. So Stefan bought my ticket to one of the games. He knew I hadn't been to an Ottawa Fury game. So he said, your ticket is on me. I experienced the supporter culture there for the first time and had a blast. So I continued to go for the rest of that season to every game. And then my second memory is the same thing as Stefan. When we finally scored a goal, we couldn't score. Trafford had scored and came running over to Anton and pretty much jumped on him and was celebrating with the fans. And then my last memory is Voyageurs Cup, and we beat Vancouver Whitecaps at home.
Yeah. Eddie, do you have one?
Yeah. And surprisingly, it's probably off the pitch.
Nice.
I don't remember the year or anything like that, but I was actually with Edmonton at the time, and we were out, and so I came back home, and it was the home playoff game against Minnesota. And so I was in attendance, and just seeing the energy in the place, the amount of people that came out, the passion, I was just sitting there, and I was just like, I need to get back here. Like somehow, like I need to get back here. Like obviously, like this is home, and I always intended on coming back at some point. But like that was the defining moment that I was just like, before I retire, I need to play in my city. So, yeah, that would be mine.
Cool. Michael.
Great.
So with me, I think the obvious is the finals against the Cosmos, but I won't go another Cosmos game, which was our first one at Lansdowne. It was my first game. It was really my introduction to the Fury. I know it was our first game at Lansdowne, and I remember building up to that game, and my brother messaged me one day, I think it was a couple of weeks before, and he goes, yo, do you know Ottawa has a soccer team? I'm like, what? Like, I'm sure they have something. He goes, no, like a pro team. I'm like, no, because I would know about it. And he's like, no, we do. We were playing at the university, and they're moving the Lansdowne. I'm like what league is this? And he showed me everything. He goes, it's called Nazol. Here it is. And I looked into the league, and me and him got really into it. And I remember, like, we got so excited to the Cosmos game. And he goes, yo, do you have a supporters section? We're going to go in there. It's going to be crazy. I'm like, well, I'm sure it's not going to be that crazy. But I think the Cosmos game, we had over 10,000 people. And I was like, okay, yeah, this is actually a thing. Wow.
Right.
And ever since then, I've been hooked on them. And I always remember the Cosmos and the Rangers game from that season. And then obviously where we came to now, it's always been like a one big journey, but that's where it started for me.
Cool. All right, Steph. So, in your opinion, who was the bigger rival for Ottawa Fury FC in the NASL days between, be it New York Cosmos, Minnesota United, FC Edmonton, or maybe someone else?
Well, the easy answer would be Edmonton, but to me, Edmonton, it was growing to be a rival. Edmonton was a rival in the Voyageurs Cup for the first 2 years, kicking us out. So the second two, again, we kicked them out, but it was growing to a rivalry. And again, that's what I'm going to love about the CanPL. That little old rivalry can renew. But in the end, I'm going to go Minnesota. Our first ever home game in NASL at Carleton University, where there's still snow around the field. They killed our unbeaten streak in 2015. And, of course, the semifinal that we had to go into extra time for. So, to me, it's Minnesota because it wasn't that person that knocked us off our pedestal. It's the person that could.
Right.
And that could really challenge us and hurt us. So, that's my rival is Minnesota, not any of the others.
Cool. Michael?
I think, again, obviously, Edmonton's a huge one. They are the main one for me because I'm a big fan of derbies. They are what drives the sport sometimes. Your team can be sucking as bad as they are, but when a derby happens, the fans are going to be there. So Edmonton's definitely one, especially that they had a player from Ottawa on the team. Made it a little bit more special. But to me, one, I think I've always hated it. I don't know why. But before I get the special thing about the NASL is it was such a small league. You really didn't like any team you played. There was no second favorite. It was literally every team you played, you hated them for one reason or another. But one thing that's always stood out to me was Tampa Bay. I've never really liked them. I've always seen them as a bit of a rival with Ottawa. I think on the last podcast with the USL, I mentioned Indy 11 as well. I really didn't like them for multiple reasons. But for me, it was probably Tampa Bay, I think. But I had like a little dark horse rivalry with us, for me, anyways.
Eddie?
Yeah, I mean, I think Michael said it best there when he said, I really didn't like any team I played against. And that's with all due respect to all my buddies that I played against. Off the pitch, it's a different thing, but on the pitch, and that's probably like why my compete level was so high, because I just had a deep hatred to lose, and I didn't want to, give anybody an inch. So, I didn't like anyone. But I mean, if I was looking for a rivalry to pick out, it would be when I was at Edmonton, it was Ottawa, and when I was in Ottawa, it was Edmonton. So.
Jess?
I never considered any of the teams rivals, but I do have to agree with Stefan. The Ottawa-Edmonton, it was developing into a rivalry. It was more of a rivalry when it came to Voyageurs Cup, but it was developing. So I'm actually interested to see when we do have the CPL resume that the rivalry come back between Ottawa and Edmonton.
No, and you're right. I mean, it was over time because, like, at the start, when we were brand new to the league, there were a lot of fans, including supporters, who just automatically, without even playing a minute of football yet in the NASL, they already deemed Edmonton our rival. But, those of us feel very strongly that it's something that needs to be built over time. There needs to be some sort of history, and you're right. We were on track, and then, what happened, but now we're joining a league where we can cross my fingers, renew that one, rekindle it, get some gas under everybody and, get pumped up for those games again. So
Anton made me laugh for two things. We're talking about rivalries. So I'm sure we've heard it many times playing USL. We'd be playing, I don't know, Loudon United, for argument's sake. All you hear, you're blue, you're white, your team is full of shite. Edmonton. We're like, really? We're not in the same league. You really hate Edmonton that much? Hey?
That one gets under my skin all the time.
And then, of course, you getting everybody on the track. I'm just thinking us in Montreal, in the subway.
Yeah. So, next question for Eddie. Out of each football club that you've ever played for, in your opinion, like, which one do you think had, the most grueling training and practices?
It would probably be Edmonton under Colin Miller. There was we had an inside joke in the locker room amongst the guys that we would say nobody grinds like the Eddies. And that joke quickly became our reality. And every game, every training session, we were grinding because most of the time we didn't have too much of the ball, right? And so that kind of became the go-to line. And I think even in some pregame talks, Colin may have said, like, remember, nobody grinds like the Eddies. But yeah, those training sessions were pretty brutal at times.
That's
okay,
cool.
So I wasn't the only coach who did that. Like, when I coach, I told the kids, I don't care if you win 6-1 or lose 6-1. You don't come off the field looking like you died.
Yeah.
Put in the work.
And sorry, I should correct myself. Like, when I say brutal, I don't mean bad. I just mean like they were really hard.
Yeah, harsh. Like, pushed you to your limit.
Exactly.
Yeah, we had a gym teacher like that, Anton. Ex-military.
Yeah.
Best gym class ever.
So, next group question for Michael. In your opinion, are you a fan of having a spring season and fall season?
It's funny with me. You look at me, and if you know me, I'm a very old-fashioned guy. So a lot of people who come into North American soccer, or I guess not so much MLS, but everything below it. Oh, not USL, but NASL did it, and Mexico does it. A lot of people who come into it who maybe followed England or European, they're not a really big fan of it. With me though, I'm okay with it. I understand why it's there. And it brings excitement to a different level in a sense because for some teams it's starting new, it gives them a new chance. Yeah, so I'm okay with it. I really don't mind how they do it. I know the CPL is getting rid of it. I believe they did it 1 year, they're not doing it again, or at least for this season.
No.
That was the plan. For me, it's play professional soccer in the city. I don't care if you're doing 7-a-side, just get it going, right?
Right.
So I'm okay with it, and I understand why people don't like it. I understand why it's a thing here. So yeah, no, thumbs up to it.
Jess?
I don't really care if there's a spring or fall season, as long as there's soccer being played.
You know what? I can get on with that. Stefan?
I actually enjoyed it. It was their cheat to not having playoffs. Because in North America, you have to have playoffs. So
Right.
it was a nice cheat away from it. Now, if they could have bounced it out a bit better, the main problem I found was, let's say Atlanta United wins the spring. They could do nothing for the fall and still be in the final. So there was maybe a bit more balance to it. I don't know how to do it. It's easy to say, well, they should fix it. Well, great. Do you have a suggestion? No. Well, then shut up. So I enjoyed it. It had its flaws, but I liked it. I knew who was the main reason I enjoyed it was, argument's sake, we saw Atlanta win. Guess what? If we win the fall, guess where we're going? Atlanta. How much are tickets in Atlanta? This much. Okay.
Right.
How much do you think a hotel will cost last minute Atlanta? This much. Okay.
Right.
Everybody had time to build up, save, potentially book time off work. It was that idea of fans can actually go see their team play. When the MLS got rid of the neutral ground, I wasn't a fan of it because everybody's with the neutral ground, you know where the game is, so you can slowly save up. Worst case scenario, your team doesn't make it. Hey, I got an extra couple grand in the bank.
Right.
You could spend it on something, a good like holiday, as it were.
Right.
So.
Eddie?
To be honest with you, I don't really have too much to say. I'm playing footy. I enjoy it either way.
I'm
That's
with
the
you
right
on
answer
that
to me.
You do what you're told. Shut up and play.
Not always, but yeah.
So, Michael, besides the New York Cosmos, which other team in the NASL did you dislike the most?
Think I answered that, didn't I?
Yeah.
I again, like, I think that was as much as we wanted to see the league grow, it was fun being part of a small team league because, like I said, you didn't like anyone and everyone had a different reason. You hated Minnesota because we played them in the playoffs. You hated Edmonton because they were our Canadian rival. You hated the Cosmos because something happened in that game. Because of the Cosmos. You hated Fort Lauderdale. You hated Indy 11 because they stole all our players after we had that championship run. It was really a thing where it was always special. But again, like, to me, there was always something special with Tampa Bay. For whatever reason, I didn't like them. And then when they came to Ottawa with Joel Cole in the USL, it made it even better. I like Joel Cole, but it was just fun to have a pro that everyone knew to chirp. But yeah, to me, everyone you hate, but I'm going to go with Tampa.
Okay. Steph?
Well, besides the rivalry, the one thing I didn't like, so backstory is before Ottawa joined the league, representing Bytown Boys, I got to fly. The league flew me and other supporter heads down to Atlanta to meet up with other supporters. And the Atlanta Ultras leader just ticked me off. He just really annoyed me. So that's number one. Number two was when Atlanta was going to join the MLS, one of their supporters group, Terminus Legion, showed up. And said, we're all about supporting local football. No, you weren't. Where were you earlier this year? Nowhere. So their fans annoyed me. And because of that, even the MLS, I do not like Atlanta because of what that one supporter group did.
Eddie?
Yeah, I would probably have to say Atlanta. First of all, if we're just going to talk about quality, at the beginning they had some talent. Like they can knock the ball around like no other team.
Right.
That's why, like that one year they won it so easily, right? Like it was
Right.
you always knew that they were either going to like run up the score or they were going to have like 90% possession on you.
Right.
So that sucked. And then on top of that, they were just like pretty arrogant. They were always in your ear. They were always giving you an extra little nudge, always stepping on your feet, things like that. The extra bits that like you're already tired and you already know that you're getting beat, but then they do the extra that kind of knock you down, right? So those guys were they were tough.
Jess?
I couldn't choose one. Going with what Michael had said, being in a small league, you hated every single team that you played. So there's different reasons for hating every single team that you played against.
Mm-hmm. All right. Next and final question for Eddie specifically. So your career has led you to play for Graceland University in Iowa, Kansas City Brass, Des Moines, Kansas City Wizards, FC Dallas, Puerto Rico Islanders. So out of them, or maybe others, which one of these places was your favorite for its party scene or nightlife?
Without a doubt, I would have to say Dallas. I mean, I was much younger, super excited to be in the MLS. It was a really, really cool city. And I think on top of all of that, what made it a really cool party scene was the team. So that team was probably one of the closest locker rooms that I've ever been a part of. And that was not just a specific group, but from the first person on the team sheet to the absolute last. And after training sessions, after games, the leaders in the locker room were like, boys, we're getting together, we're doing this. On days off, leaders send out a message, boys, barbecue at my house. You bring the burgers, you bring the beers, you bring whatever, right? We're all getting together. And that translated to on the field, right? Like we won the conference. We made it to the MLS Cup. Unfortunately, we lost in the MLS Cup, but so it was like that balance between we had a really, really good team cohesion on the field, and then it was like even better off the field. So that was a really neat experience.
Cool. All right. And final question of the day. Thank you all again for your time and for your patience. It's been a lot of fun. So, Stefan, with FC Edmonton being, one of the only other Canadian teams in NASL at the time, was it, and I mean, we're rehashing this, but was it actually a rivalry?
Voyageurs Cup, yes. League, no, but potential to become both.
All right.
Nice and simple.
Cool.
It's about the Voyageurs Cup.
Michael.
Oh, I gotta disagree with you there, bud. I think it was a rival. It was a good one too. I mean, stuff you even said when we were playing other teams, we would have the blue and white chant come out. It was from people who try to make it more, and it worked though to me. I mean, every time we played them, I feel like there was hatred towards the players, and it was always fun to chirp them. And I think we all know who I'm talking about there. I think, yeah. Eddie, you were definitely my favorite to chirp on Edmonton at the time. We all knew who you were, and we all wanted you to know it. It was a rival. It was nothing else, and I can't wait for us to play them again. And I think it's going to pick up, and I can't wait. I think regardless of where this rivalry goes now, we'll have that history where we were in one league together, the two only Canadian teams. And we didn't like each other, and I don't think that's going to go away. I'm not going to let it go away. I think unless there's literally a team in Gatineau, I think Edmonton's going to be one team I really go hard on.
Right. Jess?
Rivalries are built over time. Edmonton and Ottawa were starting to develop a rivalry. So if Edmonton had joined us in the USL, I think it just would have built on what we had already had from the NASL. And now that we're in the same league again, I am looking forward to seeing where that rivalry can go.
Cool. Final word goes to Eddie.
Yeah, I would have to say it was a legit rivalry. Like I said, that and not just speaking for myself, everyone else in the locker room, I know the way everyone felt going into those games from both sides, and nobody wanted to lose, and it was win at all costs, so it was good.
I think everyone's right. The first year in the Voyageurs Cup, I think that's what really kindled it if we're going to take the more natural route. But then because of that, as the years went on, even the regular season games meant a little bit more, to us, right? Anyway, thank you guys so much for your time. Thank you, Eddie, for coming on our episode today on all things NASL. Stefan, Jess, Michael, go check out Michael's YouTube channel, Michael McCall, MCCALL, as well as all of our socials on Facebook, Twitter, as well as at Boots Scarves on Twitter for our podcast. Every week we're coming up with different themes, so please submit questions if you have any. We're not trying to make this a journalistic style type thing where we're just trying to have fun. We're just trying to generate conversation and just have a good time. Jess, is there anything else that we need to plug in?
No, you can follow at Bytown Boys on Twitter. We do have a Facebook page and a group that you can, and that's at Bytown Boys SC group, and that's about it.
Also with now we're trying really hard not to be political, but just given what's been happening around the world, Bytown Boys issued a public statement, and we've also put up links to donate to Black Lives Matter Toronto, as well as the what's the
Black Youth Hotline. It's a hotline for Black youth needing help. You name it. When we looked at all the charities, we were looking at things that the group likes to give towards: homelessness, food, a lot of home issues, social issues. And when I saw the youth hotline, I pushed for it because in the end, when people are fighting, the real losers of war are always the children. Nobody thinks about the kids when things are fighting. What about them? They're now in this world that they don't know. It is up, down, down, up, left is sideways. They have no clue. So if they can have someone to reach out to, at least they can. And I hope we can encourage people to help both charities. I grew up in Jamaica. I got bullied for being the average white boy, not because I was a rich white boy. So I don't want people to feel that anywhere. People know me in the group. If I ever hear somebody start doing something racist, they better run because their head will fall off. They will hit the concrete ground. I have zero tolerance.
Yeah.
So I know I'm going on a rant. I'm sorry, but it's something I've always stood up for. Cool. It's not on social media because I don't care for social media.
All right. So once again, thank you all for your time. Eddie, thank you once again for joining us. We really appreciate it. That's episode 10, Boots and Scarves on NASL. Signing off. Thank you.